Hello and welcome to lucky episode number 13 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I'm your host, Rick Doherty, flying solo on the show today because I have something a little different planned for this episode. This episode is debuting on April 29th of 2021, which means if you're listening to this the first day it hits the internet, tomorrow, Disneyland is reopening to the public for the first time since the pandemic shut down Disneyland in March of 2020. Unfortunately, I am not a California resident, so I'm not going to be there as Disneyland is reopening. However, I did get the chance to be back at Walt Disney World the first week it reopened following the closure in 2020. Since I'm a little jealous of everybody who's going to get to be at Disneyland tomorrow, I thought I would look back on July of 2020 when I got that chance to spend a few days back at Walt Disney World after the closure when we didn't know how long it was going to take until we were going to be able to be in a theme park again, and just some of those emotions that were involved in that time. Before I get started, I would like to ask everyone to please like, subscribe, comment, share this episode with your friends who love Disney, who love Universal, who love traveling. It really, really does help the show. We're trying to grow something here, grow a little bit of a community. The more people we can bring into this community, the better. Also, another way to help out the show, and me in particular, I am an authorized Disney travel planner. If you're looking for a free, no-obligation quote on a Walt Disney World, Universal Orlando Resort, or any other type of vacation, shoot me an email, rick@eartotheretravel.com, rick@eartotheretravel.com. You can give me a phone call, 727-507-3123, 727-507-3123. My services are always 100% free to you. That means I may be able to find some ways to make your vacation cheaper, but you are never going to pay more because you use me as your travel agent. Once again, that's rick@eartotheretravel.com or 727-507-3123. Also have to plug the social media. Facebook.com/eartothererick, Instagram.com/rickear, the number 2, there, Twitter.com/Rick_ear, and Twitter.com/TGTT podcast. So to start my conversation about the reopening of the Walt Disney World parks in July of 2020, I'm going to have to go back, of course, to February of 2020, a little bit before we knew exactly how bad all of this was going to be and the effect that it was going to have on the entire world and, of course, on our small little section of that world in the theme park loving community. February 23rd of 2020 was the Princess Half Marathon. I signed up to run the Princess Half Marathon. It was my 4th half marathon. I also have a marathon under my belt as well. I thought it would be really fun to take part in this. I had a bunch of friends doing the 10K. It was my first Run Disney event, and I figured as a travel agent, if I'm going to be booking people for Run Disney events, I should do one. And it was an excuse to run a half marathon, to get to run through Epcot and to run through the Magic Kingdom. It was a really incredible experience. I'm so happy that I took part in it, especially knowing what happened over the course of the next few weeks. But when you arrive for one of these half marathons, you have to get there so early in the morning. You're basically getting there in the middle of the night. I think I left my house at like midnight to get to Epcot's parking lot in time to make sure that I wasn't rushing myself and that I was prepared to start this race. I don't know why this popped into my mind, but I guess Run Disney being a bucket list style event for me, something that I had always really wanted to do as a runner, I started thinking about other Disney related things on my bucket list, and I remember thinking, I can't wait to get to Shanghai Disneyland. But Shanghai Disneyland was closed at the time. They had already closed And I just remember thinking how weird it was that a Disney park was closed and assuming, well, they'll have to be open pretty soon. This isn't going to last that long. Like, I don't even know why that popped into my head at that very moment. In retrospect, this is the part of the story that absolutely blows my mind, and I can't believe that I did this. But the Princess Half Marathon was on the same day as two of my friends' birthdays. Somebody who works with my wife, Courtney, who you've heard on the show before, and my friend Jillian, who you will inevitably hear on the show at some point in the future because she is a huge Disney fan as well. So I was supposed to meet up with my wife, her coworker, and Jillian all at Magic Kingdom after I was done with the Princess Half Marathon. My initial goal was to drive to an LA Fitness that I knew was somewhat in the area because I was a member of LA Fitness at the time, and I could go in, shower at the LA Fitness, and change into my park clothes. Well, surprise, surprise, there was a huge accident on I-4, so I wasn't able to get to the LA Fitness where I wanted to go. So instead, I can't believe I did this. I drove to a Wawa and changed in the Wawa bathroom. Now, if I knew what was really going on at the time, there is no way I would have done that. But I changed in a Wawa bathroom, met up with them at Magic Kingdom, and we spent the day there. It was really fun, but it was absolutely packed. The parks can get really crowded on the days of Run Disney events because everybody likes to run the event and then wear their medal in the park, get their pictures taken. Of course, I made sure I had a fast pass to do the Cinderella meet and greet so I could get a picture with Cinderella and the Princess Half Marathon medal, which had Cinderella on it. Everybody wants to do those type of experiences, so it was really crowded. And I remember the only two rides I rode that day were the TTA People Mover and the Little Mermaid ride in Fantasyland, because when we checked the app, it said there was a 15-minute wait for the Little Mermaid ride, but by the time we got there, it was a 55-minute wait, and for some reason we decided we would still do it anyway. I had absolutely no way of knowing at the time that that ride on the People Mover was going to be my last one in well over a year. I made it a point to always ride the People Mover if I was in Magic Kingdom, and the fact that it did not reopen with the parks, and actually it just reopened very recently, and I'm not going to get to ride it again until May 6th when I do have a park reservation for Magic Kingdom. So knock on wood, everything is moving smoothly, and I can get to ride that again for my first time since the Princess Half Marathon of 2020. I did go back to Walt Disney World 2 more times before the closure. That was a day at Epcot, right at the beginning of the Flower and Garden Festival. I wanted to check out all the new offerings at the festival. You know, I always keep you updated on those new types of things. And then the following week, Thursday, March 12th, I started my day by enjoying a little bit more of Flower and Garden Festival at Epcot, and then I hopped over to Hollywood Studios because my friend Chris was in town from Pennsylvania, and I thought I would meet up with him, do some of the Star Wars stuff, and I still had not ridden Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, the brand new ride at Hollywood Studios. Chris and I got to ride Star Tours, and then as I was leaving the park, I looked at the wait time for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and it was posted at 80 minutes. I said, I have to ride this new ride. It's been open for about a week. I want to make sure I get the chance to do it. So I decided to wait the 80 minutes in line, and while I was in that queue for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, going into the Chinese theater for the first time in however many years it had been for me, that was when everything started closing. They started to announce that the NBA was going to be shutting down. The NCAA tournament wasn't going to be happening. They canceled Major League Baseball spring training. Luckily, I did get to ride Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and it is a great ride. We'll talk about it a lot on future podcasts. And then I headed back over to Epcot because that's where my car was parked. And by the time I walked out of the park, I heard somebody behind me say that she just read on her phone that Disneyland was going to be shutting down due to the pandemic. And that was when it really started to hit me that things were not going to be the same. I got into my car, started driving home, naively thinking, I hope they don't close Walt Disney World. I hope they don't close Walt Disney World. But I knew it was going to happen. I actually heard about it happening while booking a client for both Disneyland in July and a cruise, a Disney Cruise Line cruise for another client in January of 2021. We assumed all of this was going to be done by those times, and of course, it very much wasn't. And while I was booking those trips, that's when I heard Walt Disney World would be closing. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't a fun summer to be a travel agent because I spent most of my time canceling or rescheduling trips for my clients. Actually, the past few months have been really exciting for me because some of those clients have finally gotten to take their rescheduled trips to Walt Disney World. I'm really happy about that. It took a lot of work to make sure everything was still working smoothly for those clients, that they were able to enjoy everything about their vacations. But I did put in that work, and they had great times. I'm so happy that while things are not nearly back to normal, and I totally understand that, we can't forget to be safe and we can't forget all the protocols and all of that stuff. I am happy that we're starting to see ways that we can do these things safely. I have been incredibly impressed with the way Walt Disney World, Universal Orlando Resort, all of these different places have handled trying to keep everybody safe. It really, really is important. And all of you who visit the theme parks and try to make sure you're following the rules, you are also helping to get everything back to some sense of normalcy where we can continue to travel, where we can visit these places that we love, that they can reopen safely. So thank you to everybody who's doing everything they can to make sure this works. By May, Disney Springs had reopened, and I did make sure that I was at the first day of reopening for Disney Springs because I missed it just that much. I was literally going to Disney Springs each and every week there for a while because I wanted to get my Disney fix, even though it certainly wasn't a theme park. It certainly wasn't the magic that we all know and love. But I do love Disney Springs, so it was fun to go there every week, get a Joffrey's coffee, do some of the Disney stuff that we all love. Then finally the time came, the reopening of Walt Disney World in July of 2020. Unfortunately, I missed out on a pass holder preview. I got the email, but they just filled up so quickly I wasn't able to make it happen. I was, however, able to get reservations for Magic Kingdom on the 14th, Disney's Hollywood Studios on the 15th, which was the day that reopened to the general public, and I had made an Epcot reservation for the following week. As annual pass holders, we are only able to hold 3 Park Pass reservations at the same time. So I thought those were going to be my 3 Park Pass reservations. Those were going to be my first times back at Walt Disney World. But one of my fellow travel agents from Ear to There Travel, Heather, is a DVC member. She wasn't going to be able to use her scheduled trip for that week, so I was able to buy her DVC points from her, take that trip off of her hands, work with Disney to do all that. If you are an annual pass holder and you're staying on property, they let you make Park Pass reservations, as long as they're available, for all of the days that you are going to be staying on property, which meant that now my 3-night, 4-day trip to Walt Disney World, staying at Saratoga Springs. So now I was able to make 4 Park Pass reservations for that week. I kept Magic Kingdom on the 14th and Hollywood Studios on the 15th. I made Disney's Animal Kingdom on the 16th, and I closed things out on Friday the 17th with Epcot, because Epcot was the park that was staying open the latest, and Epcot seems like more of a Friday night park anyway. So I got up bright and early. Actually, that's a lie. It wasn't even bright yet when I started leaving for Magic Kingdom on that first day. They weren't letting people into the parking lot until about an hour to 45 minutes before the park officially opened. So actually, I had gotten there too early for that, had to loop around once or twice. And then by the time we looped around once or twice, they were able to let us line up at the toll booth and eventually to be let into the TTC on our way to Magic Kingdom. Honestly, I didn't know how comfortable I would be being crammed into a monorail. Obviously, the way they ended up doing it, I would have felt safe, and I've had no problem riding the monorails in future trips. But I decided to take the ferry boat over. I also thought it would be fun to just see the castle as we're floating across on the ferry boat. And then it was time. I was finally at the gates, let in, scanned my magic band, took a whole bunch of pictures by the train station, and headed under onto Main Street, USA. And I will tell you what, we overuse the term magical when we talk about Disney vacations. They always are magical, but that is like our go-to adjective. But walking onto Main Street, USA, with all of that uncertainty of the past few months, never knowing when we would get to be back there. And then they had Mickey and Minnie and Donald and Daisy and a bunch of cast members, and they were waving to us from the top of the train station as I walked down Main Street, USA, towards the castle. Remember, the castle now had the new paint job. It was a newly designed castle. It was beautiful. Cast members just lined Main Street, USA, waving at us, welcoming us back, thanking us for being there. Of course, we were the ones who were grateful. We were thanking them. Everything those cast members have dealt with over the past few months, going on almost a year now, always be nice to cast members. If you're mean to cast members, you're trash. They have put up with so much over the last year. I have a lot of friends who are cast members, and it has been rough. For them to stand along Main Street, USA, and thank us when we really should have been thanking them, that was incredible. I will never forget that feeling, and I have so much respect for all cast members. My goal was to rush to my favorite ride. I was determined to make my first ride back at Walt Disney World be Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. I got right on it. There was no wait. In fact, I rode it 3 times in my first hour in the park. Yes, the Walt Disney World parks are still at limited capacity, but unless you were there when this was happening, you will have no idea just how empty they were in mid-July of 2020. Like I said, I rode Big Thunder Mountain 3 times in an hour, ran over to Peter Pan's flight. I didn't run, I just walked briskly. Rode that 2 or 3 times in a row, went on Haunted Mansion a few times. Over the course of the day, I know I rode Big Thunder Mountain Railroad 5 times, and I rode Seven Dwarfs Mine Train 5 times. Think about how often you will see Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at a 2-hour wait. Even now, even at limited capacity, you can see that have huge, huge waits. I also got to check out all of the character cavalcades. Anybody who isn't aware, they are not having parades right now at Walt Disney World because obviously that gets a whole bunch of people to congregate together. They also aren't having traditional character meet and greets. So one of the things they decided to do is at random times, they would just have some characters come down on small floats and go from Frontierland and down Main Street, USA in Magic Kingdom, and they're calling them character cavalcades. One of these involves the princesses with Merida leading the way, riding a horse. There's some other random characters who are led by Gaston, who's riding a horse. These are really interesting experiences that you wouldn't have gotten in the past and really add to the vibe of Magic Kingdom. This sort of feels like something that should have been here all along. It makes you feel like these characters really live there, that they're not just waiting in line for a photo op with people, that they're coming through welcoming you to their theme park. I totally get the purpose of the traditional meet and greets, and I do hope they return at some point, but I hope they keep elements of the character cavalcades, because this is something very special, and you will love them if you haven't been back to Walt Disney World. When you see them for the first time, you'll really, really appreciate it. I wrapped up my day at Magic Kingdom by just getting a treat from the confectionery and sitting on Main Street and watching people leaving the park, enjoying their first time back, watching the characters wave goodbye to us on the train station. Then I made my way back to the TTC and headed over to Saratoga Springs. This was the first time I'd ever stayed at this resort. If you're not aware where Saratoga Springs is located, it's actually directly across the lake from Disney Springs. It's a beautiful resort based on the town in upstate New York. Of course, a lot of horse racing there, if you're familiar, and a lot of the theming is based on horse racing as well. I ordered takeout from a pizza place on International Drive and just sat on the deck of my room at Saratoga Springs, drank some Joffrey's coffee, drank a few Coke Zeros as well, and just sort of enjoyed the atmosphere of being back on Walt Disney World property. That is my favorite way to relax when I'm staying at a resort, is to hang out on the porch or on the deck, drink a Joffrey's coffee. There was a lake, or I guess it's supposed to be a spring, that was right behind my room, so I was able to look at that until probably about 1 o'clock in the morning when I finally decided I would head into bed. The next day, I had to be up super early because I needed to make sure I got on the bus to Disney's Hollywood Studios in enough time to get a boarding group for Rise of the Resistance. I was through my temperature checks into the park well in enough time for boarding groups to go live. However, Hollywood Studios was not as empty as Magic Kingdom. There are a lot fewer rides at Disney's Hollywood Studios than at Magic Kingdom, so people don't have as many places to go right now, especially with some of the shows that still aren't operating. But some of the shows that are operating now weren't operating back then. So there were a lot of people comparatively. Now, not as many as there are now, and certainly not as many as there were on March 12th, but it felt a little more crowded than Magic Kingdom felt. That was the first time ever I didn't get a Rise of the Resistance boarding group when they immediately went out first thing in the morning, but I was able to hang on for the 1 o'clock release of boarding groups, and I did get one in that batch. I was able to ride Slinky Dog Dash, I was able to ride Rise of the Resistance, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I was able to do absolutely everything I wanted to do. Some things I was able to do twice, 3 times. I am not complaining. I'm not saying that it was super duper busy. It just felt busy compared to Magic Kingdom the previous day. It was rainy. It was definitely, of the 4 days, my least favorite, but that doesn't mean, like, if your least favorite day of a vacation, you get to ride Rise of the Resistance, it is a good vacation. My favorite day of the vacation, however, was Thursday, and that was when I went to Disney's Animal Kingdom. It felt completely empty. I rode every ride at least twice. Here's my favorite story to sum up just how great it was to be at Disney's Animal Kingdom in July of 2020. I got off Avatar Flight of Passage. It was a 10-minute wait for Avatar Flight of Passage, a ride that can regularly get up to 2, sometimes 3 hours on a regular park day, and I waited 10 minutes for it. And as I was leaving, there was a cast member standing there saying, if you want to get on and ride it again, go through this door. One of the most popular rides in all of Walt Disney World property, one of the rides that puts up routinely the longest lines on property. And they were saying on this day, if you want to just go back on and ride it again immediately, you can do that. The character cavalcades at Animal Kingdom are really unique. The characters are on boats that go around the river that surrounds Discovery Island. You get to see them throughout the park. They're on the river. You get great pictures of them in front of the Tree of Life. And if you just want to have a seat in that stadium seating area right in front of Expedition Everest, that's where the boats take off and come back in when they're doing their character cavalcades. So if you sit there, you will see a lot of characters in just 15-20 minutes of sitting in that location. I also took advantage of the limited capacity to get a dining reservation at Tiffin's at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I have to say, after this visit and subsequent visits, I have to say it's tied with Hollywood Brown Derby as my favorite restaurant on Walt Disney World property. It is themed towards all of the places Imagineers, especially legendary Imagineer Joe Rohde, visited when they were planning the theming of Disney's Animal Kingdom. Some pictures are different locations throughout Africa and Asia that they visited. They took a lot of notes, they took a lot of pictures, and all of this research is throughout the restaurant. The food is second to none, except for maybe Hollywood Brown Derby, like I said. Now, I'm not going to go too much more in depth into Tiffin's because next week I'm going to be going to Tiffin's with Marissa, who you hear on the show very often, and we are going to do a more detailed dining review of Tiffin's after that visit, so you can hear that on a future episode. Back in July, Disney's Animal Kingdom closed pretty early in the evening, so I had a lot of free time that night to do some things. I decided to walk over from Saratoga Springs to Disney Springs, mobile ordered some deluxe burger, and picked up some treats from Aaron McKenna's Bakery NYC, which is the all-vegan, completely plant-based and gluten-free bakery in Disney Springs. I got that, took it back to my room, watched the Disney television channel that shows you what times the parks are open the next day and gives you all that kind of information, and it was just awesome to have that channel back on a television, to sit there and watch it and listen to the Disney music, eat my deluxe burger. Obviously, I got the veggie burger because I'm a vegetarian, but they have a really good veggie burger at Deluxe Burger. Once again, had more Joffrey's coffee and got ready because the next day was going to be my last day, and I was going to the park that I visit more than any other park now that I am an annual pass holder, and that is Epcot. There are going to be a lot of parents that might be upset about this, but right after I got into Epcot, I went back to the Norway Pavilion and was able to ride Frozen Ever After 2 times in a row with basically no wait at all. Frozen Ever After is another one of those rides like Avatar Flight of Passage or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train that can routinely have waits of well over 2 hours. But this was under 10 minutes. I was in, on, and off the ride. I've said a few times recently that even though the park crowds are not bad, especially compared to previous years, I didn't realize how little time we would have with those minuscule crowds. Because basically by the end of August, it started to pick up a little bit more, and we didn't have these empty sections of the park. If you're familiar with the Japan Pavilion in World Showcase, and there's an area in the back where you can sit, there's some tables, there's a nice little waterfall that's really relaxing. I sat in that area at one point for 30 minutes all by myself. I was the only one there. You know me, I got to take some video of the waterfall and not have to hear people talking in the background. I took a whole bunch of pictures. It was great for me. I absolutely loved it. It's honestly going to be a memory that I have just being in the parks when things were that empty. I remember going back to that first day when I was at Magic Kingdom. I did a Facebook Live at facebook.com/eartothererick. I'm always doing Facebook Lives from the parks, so go follow me there. And I did a Facebook Live standing in the middle of Fantasyland at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just turned around in a circle, and 360 degrees around me in Fantasyland at 5 o'clock in the afternoon at Magic Kingdom, you maybe saw 3 or 4 people. There were definitely some parts of Epcot that were like that. Another great thing about being at Epcot at that time was they decided to start a Taste of Epcot International Food and Wine Festival with the park reopening. In the past, that festival didn't get started until late August, early September sometimes. Well, in 2020, they started in mid-July. Now in 2021, they're going to be starting again in mid-July with a Taste of Epcot International Food and Wine Festival. I got to try all of those amazing dishes. There was a really good vegan sausage mac and cheese that you were able to get in the World Showplace building. That was probably my favorite item of the entire festival. And then I got to close out the night doing one of my favorite things at Walt Disney World, and that is seeing Impressions de France in the France Pavilion. I love that movie. They're only starting it later in the day now. Like, it doesn't start until the evening. It might even be dark by the time they start showing it because they have the Beauty and the Beast sing-along during the day. But I waited. I saw Impressions de France there in the back of the park and then got to walk up to the front of the park. By that point, it was dark. I was able to see those beautiful images of Spaceship Earth, World Showcase. It was really one of those moments that reminded me why I love these parks so much. So I hope you enjoyed episode 13 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. I know it's a little different than what we normally do on the show. It was just me rambling on without a guest. But don't worry, next week we will be back with guests. I am going to be talking to my good friend Amanda from Scotland. She's going to be talking about some of the things she loves to do when her family visits Walt Disney World, but she's also going to be talking about when she thinks she's going to have the chance to get back over to the United States, when she might get to visit Walt Disney World again. And since this is a show that talks about all travel, not just theme parks, she's going to tell us Americans some places that we should visit if we are going to head over to Scotland. I'm really, really excited for that episode, and it will happen next Thursday on Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and please share the podcast with your friends. It really does help me. Also, if you're looking for a free, no-obligation quote on a Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Universal Orlando Resort, Universal Hollywood, or any other type of vacation, shoot me an email, rick@eartotheretravel.com, rick@eartotheretravel.com. You can give me a call, 727-507-3123, 727-507-3123. I am an authorized Disney travel planner, and my services are always 100% free to you. It really would help me out and help the show if you contacted me the next time you were planning any type of vacation. Once again, thank you for joining me for another episode of Tall Guy Talks Travel. We will be back next Thursday. Have a great week.